Before I begin, I'd just like to say not every Star Wars fan is the same. We all have a specific part of this universe that pulls us all in for entertaining stories that it tells. I want to begin this video like this because there's a very low chance that we'll all feel the same way. Critics are split and so are fans. And to the person hearing this, don't ever let anyone tell you what you're allowed to like and what you shouldn't. I don't care if you enjoy Jar Jar Binks, or think Attack of the Clones is the best movie ever made, or if The Last Jedi is the worst thing that ever hit theaters. I'm glad people find enjoyment in different things within this fandom. I'm glad we all have something in our lives that gives us this amazing feeling of how special this series is to them, and no one should be able to take that away from you. So let's just do one thing while I express my opinion in Rise of Skywalker. If you could, just please don't try to be so uncivilized. Begin with the hype leading up to this movie. When the trailers for Last Jedi came out, I stopped watching them after the release of the teasers so I wouldn't be spoiled. And not all trailers spoil movies, but I still like to watch a movie going in blind to enjoy it in its own way of presenting its story naturally. And for Rise of Skywalker, it was really hard to go in blind. The reveal of Palpatine being back was straight up spoiled by its very own promotional poster. I'll talk more about that later, but I hated knowing it. It 100% felt right off the bat like it was damage control for Last Jedi, because there was a majority that hated that movie. This doesn't bother me because it appeals to those who hated Last Jedi. It angers me because it's an example of why big studios easily panic when they think they've lost the value of your dollar. They also went ahead and fired the original director of Episode 9, Colin Trevorrow. Mr. Sunday Movies basically did a video where he had someone animate the leaked Episode 9 script, and I highly recommend it. Now, let's get into it. So, they brought JJ, who was the director of The Force Awakens, back, who I thought would be perfect for this choice. But you know what? He's fine. I think the problem here is the writer. I'll call him Chris T. The writer interests me a lot because he wrote a movie called Argo, which got really great reviews. But then he went and wrote Batman v Superman, which I don't hate, but I don't love. Then he did a bit of Justice League, which I also hated. There was a lot of reshoots and production issues, so I'll give him a pass on a bit of it until that Snyder Cut comes out. But back to what I was saying about the writing. All three of these movies in this trilogy are written by different people. Lawrence Kasdan and J.J. Abrams and Michael Arnott did The Force Awakens. The Last Jedi was written only by Rian Johnson. And then J.J. Abrams and Chris T for Episode 9. And when you have multiple directors, the main vision for storytelling within this trilogy becomes lost behind each writer's intentions, as they throw the franchise to each other like your mom at a college frat party. Multiple plots get focused, but then are easily abandoned moving sequel to sequel, or decide to just outright change. Let me tell you more about this. When we first meet Finn, he leaves the First Order in The Force Awakens and wants to find himself redeemed for being on the wrong side. After he joins Rey and BB-8, his character is pretty much done. They give him this sort of out-of-left-field side quest in The Last Jedi with Rose that adds nothing to that movie. They waste the entire Canto Bight subplot by forcing a message about animal abuse, child labor, and weapons within the military. These don't work not because they're trying to give a political message in a Star Wars movie. They don't work because they are already two things to focus on, even though we already have stuff to focus on the other side. You see, we got these two major story arcs, and then we got Canto Bight. You see, for one, we got Rey trying to convince Luke to join the Resistance fight against the First Order. And then we have Kylo Ren's struggle with the dark side, and stuff going on with him and Snoke. Plus, that stuff with Poe and Holdo, which I'm not gonna talk about, like, we all know it was boring. But basically, when it's all said and done, his character gains nothing of importance from this story, and he's even just as useless in Rise of Skywalker. All he does is scream, and he fights with them against the First Order, but that's pretty much it. Poe, I'll admit, is pretty much the same person at the end of this trilogy, but my defense for this argument of too many cooks is the character of Rey. I love Rey. I love Daisy Ridley as an actress. I think that she gives an amazing performance for all three of these movies. But the way they mistreat her lineage in all three of these movies is exhausting. During the lead up to The Force Awakens, the lack of plot details left us with many questions about her lineage. Han and Leia's daughter, Luke's daughter, Obi-Wan's granddaughter. We still had so many questions going into Episode 8. And Rian did for the most part. He put those to rest for a while, almost 2 whole years. It was simple. Rey's parents were nobody. And that's a pretty strong message if you ask me. It shows that greatness can come from nothing. You don't have to be attached to a lineage of great ancestors to achieve greatness. And then, oh boy, they couldn't leave well enough alone. Episode 9 came in with that damage control I was telling you about earlier and used her as the perfect crutch for Palpatine's return. Turns out old Palp got him some in his college days, and now he have Rey, his granddaughter. Sorry, I can't. Jesus Christ. Fuck, what were they thinking? Anyways, like I said, this wouldn't be an issue unless there was some foreshadowing about his return. Again, there were multiple writers within this trilogy, so it feels so unnecessary for him to return because the first 2 didn't even bother with building him up. JJ was busy building up Snoke, and then Rian came in and said screw Snoke, and got rid of him, and then JJ panicked, and now we have Palpatine clones. Fucking Palpatine clones! Who the... What the f... None of this makes any sense! Okay, sorry. Back to what I was saying about Rey and her lineage.
Rey Skywalker.
The reason this scene bothers me isn't because she's joining the Skywalker family. I'm completely fine with that. It's because all they have done with Rey during this trilogy is make a big deal about where she comes from. And again, this could work if you would have said that she is a nobody from the start. But then you flipped it twice. And my god, it's not rewarding at this point, it's just exhausting. So to make it simple, I'm fine with Rey being claimed as a Skywalker. But the entire execution is so drawn out and messy that I checked out of having an interest in this topic an entire film ago. And it's the ending scene of your movie. Let's move on. So let me try to recap how complicated the plot is, and how it just doesn't work. So Palpatine has been cloned the entire time. He calls to recruit Kylo so that he can take command of the First Order because he wants to use their forces to reign over the galaxy. Kylo, I guess, can kill him, but doesn't. And Palpatine could just kill Kylo, but he doesn't. Why? I don't know. If Palpatine is already useless without the First Order, and Kylo claims he needs Rey to kill Palpatine, then why not say yes, I'll join you, and then leave and never come back? He has those old Star Destroyers, sure, but I'm sure you could just blow the whole place to hell and move on. Movie has already lost me and we're 5 minutes in. The dude gets zapped with lightning and dies anyway, so it's not like he's invincible. Now remember, this entire movie is based off my memory, and I've only seen it like 4 times. If I get lost, and I got some facts wrong, I do apologize. Rey, Finn, Poe, and Chewie go looking for a thing on this Coachella-like planet, because they hear Palpatine has returned. They run into Lando for 2 minutes, then they run into the First Order, then they go on a chase and fall into quicksand, which happens to have the dagger that has Sith language, and they can't read it, so they gotta go find somebody to do that. So, the Force can apparently heal people now, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with it. I already know that somebody's gonna die later, because why else would you introduce this, but whatever. Anyways, Chewie gets killed, but that only lasts for like 2 minutes and 6 seconds. Then they meet Zori Bliss, who knows a puppet that can wipe 3PO's mind to read the dagger. To find out where the next clue is, you know. But R2 also has his memory, so that only lasted for like 2 minutes and means nothing. And then Hux is a spy, but then he gets killed, so that also doesn't matter. And then they find out what they were looking for in the Death Star wreckage. Yep, go ahead and play those nostalgia feelings, you know. Okay. We've already been to 4 different locations within 30 minutes, and it's tiring. I feel like the only reason this movie keeps going so fast is because it's afraid for you to stop and think about how none of it makes sense. And that's the truth. It tries to distract you with nostalgia and new characters and unimportant stakes so it keeps you from questioning its logic. So Rey and Kylo have this fight. I think it's personally mediocre. The visuals in Last Jedi just kind of ruined anything that you could ever do with a lightsaber moving forward. I mean, that Clone Wars fight was pretty cool with Ahsoka and Darth Maul, but this is okay. Anyways, Rey wins because Leia distracts Ben and she stabs him, and then, of course heals him. So Rey gets mad because she thinks she's going to turn to the dark side for some reason, like her grandfather, and goes to hide on Luke's island. And I have a major part with this whole pull to the dark side stuff in Star Wars. This movie has the same issue as Revenge of the Sith for me. You see, the Jedi has always mentioned the struggle to the dark side, and in both sequels and prequels, it seems like all you have to do is forget that you're a good person, and suddenly you're a Sith. At least, that's how they make it seem in this movie. I think Revenge of the Sith is not as good as this, but at least they do a good job of showing Anakin's turn to the dark side and make it seem legit. He's portrayed to have a dark side in both Attack of the Clones and the Clone Wars. Rey has never been a bad person in this entire movie series, so her conflict seems meaningless. The closest thing I can think of that she did that was bad was stealing the Falcon in Force Awakens, and that was completely justified. This is the problem that you have when you have too many writers, guys. This is why you should just stick with one person, like a Kevin Feige or whatever, or a group of directors like the Russo brothers, and try to make out a plan so that you don't fuck it up like you fucked it up. Okay, this is me just kind of like taking a small break in the video. I know that I've gotten like a little agitated going through this review, and I'm sorry. At the end of the day, none of this will matter. It really will not. I'm just somebody that's bitching behind a keyboard right now. I really am. The only difference is that I'm editing it into a video. If you like this movie, I'm completely fine with that. There's couple billion people on this planet. We're all gonna have different opinions. If you like this movie, the only thing that I can say is that I'm sad I don't like it too. And I'm sad that I see things that bothers me when I watch it. I love the first two sequels, and I hate that this movie just doesn't work for me. It's sad. Like, I really do. Like, I feel bummed that this is the movie that turns me off of the sequels, when the sequels have slowly become one of my favorite parts of Star Wars. Alright. So let's go ahead and move into the fifth part, and not much left in the video. Let's go ahead and talk about some stuff that I do like in this movie, because there's stuff that I enjoy, believe it or not. I hate that a majority of this review so far has been me whining and complaining about the stuff that I said that I didn't like, so here it is. I think the cinematography is great in this movie. I actually really love the style that each three of these movies have. You see, when it comes down to it, The Force Awakens kind of looks sharp, The Last Jedi is all grainy, and Rise of Skywalker just feels very polished. I'll give them credit there. Another thing I really like is sound design and mixing. It's Star Wars, so it's always bringing its A-game in that department, as well as its visual effects and the CGI. As far as scenes go, there is one that I not only like, but I love. And I think it could just straight up be the best in the entire trilogy. Ben choosing to move to the light side always makes me cry. On opening night, I was crying hard during this scene. The scene clearly shadows the bridge moment in Starkiller Base on The Force Awakens. And I know I hadn't mentioned it, but The Force Awakens is actually a very important movie to me. You see, I grew up liking Star Wars alone. Not a whole lot of people I knew in my area just liked Star Wars as much as I did. The closest thing was my dad, who usually was more of a Star Trek guy, and that was rare for him. He hardly loved movies because he was always busy working, and, he just didn't. But he liked the science fiction genre. It just kind of worked for him. In fact, he stayed on the Sci-Fi Channel all the time. He's actually the one that introduced me to Star Wars. And I was very excited to have a new experience for the first time with the person that introduced me to this amazing universe. it's something that he had in his life and something that I was getting to have in my life. The night that the trailer dropped, I instantly bought our tickets for opening night on December 18th. I was super pumped. And then December 2nd, 2015 happened. On his way home from work late that night, his truck flipped and he died in the car crash. I never experienced a loss like this in my life. It didn't just feel real. It didn't. Sometimes 5 years later, it still doesn't. I really don't want to spend too long talking about this, but that is why a huge part of my love of Force Awakens is just, I really have no idea what he would have thought of that movie, and I wish that he could have seen it with me. Going to it without seeing him, going to see it without him felt so weird, and every time I put it on, it still feels weird to this day. Something about the relationship there with Ben and his father in these scenes just get to me. And it really hurt when I had to watch this scene in Force Awakens, and it was just nice seeing this character get closure. I honestly couldn't really properly move on until about 2 years after, when it just finally hit me that he was gone and he was never coming back. I don't like to talk about this kind of shit too much, and I don't want to spend most of this review talking about it. I just feel like if I'm being honest, I should just go ahead and be honest about it. I want to spend the rest of this review just talking about the positives and not focusing on the negatives. This scene was just perfect for me. That's as simple as I can make it. So Rey and Ben team up to fight Palpatine, which is really cool. Ben completely wrecking the Knights of Ren is awesome. Palpatine shooting his lightning into the sky is amazing. And so is Rey saying, "I know the Jedi." It's just something about those moments I really love. The space battle that resembles Endgame didn't really do anything for me, so I won't talk about it. Rey dies, then Ben brings her back to life, and they give this what I think is just an out-of-place kiss that only horny preteens and teenagers could see coming. I just don't think that's how you write romance. Not against these two getting together, I just think it could have been done better. And then Ben dies. I think that's sad. And everyone reunites on Alo Roth. And I really love this shot of them all hugging. Something about it just warms my heart. And then we cut to credits.
Rey Skywalker.
I said we cut to credits! Final verdict. Yeah, so that was Rise of Skywalker and what I did and didn't like. It's easy to see why it's the weakest of the trilogy, at least to me. It's very jumbled, moves way too quick as a finale, and feels like damage control for another movie. I don't hate this movie, but I just don't care to rewatch it. I think if I'm ever marathoning these, that I might pop it in from time to time, but I'll have to think about it, really. If I had to give a final verdict, I'd say a C or C-. The movie isn't terrible, but I just wish we would have gotten Colin's version instead. Now that we're at the end, I hope you enjoyed. If this format's popular and people like this style, then I might make more videos like this. I really enjoyed doing it. It was like kind of a personal project. It took me a couple days to get the clips and audio and everything edited together. I'm actually in the middle of editing the first part of the video that you guys have already seen, and I'm just doing the audio recordings from time to time, and while it is a lot of work, I'm loving it. So if you're there and you want to subscribe, you can do that. If not, then I do hope you have a great day, and peace.